Botswana's president Duma Boko is in hot water after calling out MPs for focusing too much on grilling each other instead of actually making laws. His bold statement has triggered major backlash, with lawmakers clapping back and accusing him of undermining their credibility. Is the president holding MPs accountable, or is he just deflecting blame? Let's break it down. Before we dive in, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a SnapFlash update on political power plays. The comments that started it all. Speaking at a business forum, Boko urged business leaders to hold MPs accountable, claiming they waste too much time questioning each other instead of doing their actual job, making laws.
I've said so many times, I say it again. One of the biggest problems of government is government itself. And so government must change the way it does things. Must move outside the old molds, these old patterns and paradigms, and begin to reimagine even the institutions themselves that comprise government. Very important. There's a lack of agility in government. Government is often unresponsive, supine, lethargic at the best of times. And this can be very frustrating, especially for business. So we're trying to inject some agility, some vitality into the workings of government itself. So we are reconfiguring, reimagining many of the institutions that constitute government. It's very important. You must play a part in this reimagination of government. Government is a human artifact. You created this government. You created all these successive regimes that have ruled this country. You created them. You acquiesced in whatever they were doing by commission or by omission. At times with your affable indifference, smiling at them and yet recognizing that they were deep failures, faults, shortcomings, and not voicing them out. You acquiesced. You were complicit. You were accomplices before and or after the fact to the inequities that took place in this society. All of us, we were there. We are guilty as charged. So we must openly acknowledge our own foibles, our own faults. The better then for us to refocus on how we reorganize, reconfigure government. Parliament is another institution operating on the conventional and the commonplace. What happens in Parliament? What should happen? Before I get to what happens, what is it that should happen in Parliament? Our Constitution says Parliament must make laws for the peace and good governance of this country. Section 86 of our Constitution makes it plain. There is no ambiguity. It speaks in forceful, evocative, mandatory terms. And so Parliament is independent and supreme in the function of lawmaking. What is it that impedes, that frustrates you the most? It is the legal framework that is over-regulatory, that is incongruous, that is often contradictory, self-sabotaging. That is what you are facing on a daily basis. And how can we change this? by ensuring that Parliament makes the right laws to facilitate your ease of doing business. I'm being practical now. Aristotle says you can look at problems at two levels, the intellectual reality and the practical reality. I've now descended to the practical, brass tacks. What is it that must happen? Laws must be amended. New laws must be enacted. The existing ones must be repealed, some of them. We need to acknowledge this. And when we do, we must then go back to where the fountain source of the power of lawmaking lies, and that is Parliament. Is Parliament making laws? How many laws have been made since Parliament sat? Very few. Why? Because the order of business in Parliament is not consistent with that constitutional function that is bestowed on Parliament. Make laws. And I raise this question here because I want you to put pressure on Parliament, on your members of Parliament, your representatives, the politicians. Put pressure on them and say, the reason we are in this quagmire is because you folks are not doing your job. You are not passing laws for the order, peace, and good governance of this country. You are not passing laws that make it easy for us to do business. You are not doing your job. And so you see a lot of showboating taking place on the floor of Parliament, a lot of grandstanding, a lot of intellectual vacuity. People not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Asking questions, moving motions. What motions? What questions? Your job is to make laws. When they make the laws, they bind the executive. When Parliament passes a law, all the president must do, once it has been passed on the floor of Parliament, he must do one of two things. Sign, assent to the law. If he doesn't like it for whatever reason, he will send it back to Parliament and say, there's a problem with this law in these regards. Parliament takes a fresh look at it, and it is open to them to return the same law unchanged to the President with a 2/3 majority and say to him, sign this law. And at that point, he must either sign or dissolve Parliament if he feels very strongly about it. So we must be talking here at a level where Parliament or members of Parliament say to you, to the populace, we've presented this law to this president who has blatantly, stubbornly refused to sign. You'll pass judgment then on the president. This is how these things work. And so what do we see in Parliament? This august house of honorable people. And they insist on being called honorable, by the way. If you don't, you have disrespected them. And if you check the Hansard, when I was a member of Parliament, I never called anybody honorable. Because respect must be earned, not commanded. And so they spend 90% of their time in Parliament asking questions. When is the window of that classroom in Mogoditsani Senior Secondary School going to be fixed? You've brought this to Parliament about a window that requires fixing. We're not saying the window must not get fixed. But is this the right forum for this grievance or complaint? Couldn't you have gone to the relevant authorities and just dragged them by the hand and shown them the window and asked them, please fix this thing? You want to go to Parliament and expend time, temporal and financial resources so that people debate the fixing of a window in, my goodness. I've called it time theft. Failure to appreciate what your core mandate is. And the next, motions. This House requests the President to set up a commission of inquiry. Request. You are requesting. You are begging. When the Constitution says you can command the President. How? Make laws. That's your job. So these institutions must reimagine the very operations that they have become hostages of. We are all willing hostages. We've never paused to interrogate the real role and responsibility of Parliament. We've not done it.
Lawmakers did not take this lightly. They say the president is undermining their work and damaging their public image.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, negere reterlibisanya khaye ngo retere ba kanya. Kana tautuna ngo le go wa tsamante. Ra tso Duma Boko. Ngo re ga thata ka parlamente. Le ka re tsamaisang ka te. Le di kgang tse re di bua. Gongwe le gongwe ha tserante. Ngo re ka parlamente. Jalo na negere Mr. Speaker, ke tsa lo yana di kgang tsa te wa di follow. Na negere gongwe re mo kope. Jaaka leloko la parlamente gongwe ko General Assembly. Re ko re go mo utwa le rona re utwe. Re wela ne re dumalane. Na ne ke tsa gore ka gore kile ana mo parlamente ngwaga tse 5. Mme dikgwetso tse ra kana le tsone ga re le ka go dira melao ya parlamente. Ona ra kana le tsone. Ne ke sa solo yala gore o ka tsama aka bua dikgang tse di batang go insinuate gore ra palelwa ke go tisa melao ka ditsela tse di ntseng jalo. Ne ke re Mr. Speaker, re mo kopele re tsene mo General Assembly re bue le mogolo re mmontshe mabaka le ena re bontshe mabaka re utwaneng going forward. Ka leboga.
Ne ke re ke hitise matshwenyego a mangwe a ke a bone maitsebo a maabane. Ne ke re ke le ha mo go di tshwanega ke sekolo ya me ithubele windscreen. Yana batho ba re bitsa batho ba di screen, batho ba di windows and window screens out there. Me ku utwa re tswelle ka diputso ha Mr. Speaker. Kgang ke gore ba re diputso tsa rona ha di a siama. Ebile kontego ba re bitsa re ba di windscreen. Ba mpiditse ba windscreen maabane o mo go di tshwana. And that I wasn't happy with it.
The backlash was so intense that the Speaker of Parliament had to step in, urging MPs to address their concerns through proper channels instead of heated debates.
Yeah, me as a point of procedure.
Ma pele ke wela Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, you'll have the platform of the General Assembly. I'm sure this is in light of what Dr. Hobotwang has said. So, are boneng gore tare re nguna ko General Assembly. Le na platform tse di arologaneng ba parlament. Re tere buisane re thusane re gakollane. Jana e ke na kwa dipotso. Ha le jela na kwa go botsa dipotso. Le setse le jele 7 minutes ka late le ka di point of procedures. Le are ko dipotso.
In an interview with the Botswana Gazette, political analyst Professor Zibani Mondani says Boko is missing the mark. He argues that while MPs propose laws, it's actually the executive's job to draft and push them forward. So should Boko be blaming himself instead? This isn't just a political spat, it's a debate on governance. Critics argue that accountability goes both ways. MPs must focus on passing laws, but the president must also step up in leading effective governance instead of pointing fingers. So, what's the truth? Is Boko right to call out MPs, or are lawmakers justified in their outrage? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you love hard-hitting political analysis, subscribe to SnapFlash and stay ahead of the drama. Until next time, keep questioning, keep debating, and keep watching the future unfold.